Okay, now we are going to discuss about this proxy design pattern. As we know that this proxy design pattern, the proxy design pattern. Okay. In the shift first, we discuss about the design patterns. We know that design pattern is a reuse concept in the software development, and we have around 23 design patterns. Among them, we are going to use. So we are going to discuss about this proxy design pattern. As we know that the proxy design pattern, proxy means that things we do in the classes. I still remember this when some friends absent the classes, so we represent them and give the attendance. So this many is applying here on the design patterns. So this proxy design pattern applies, it creates some classes which represent the real subject or real object or real classes instead of them real one. So when we use design patterns, let's see if there's some system that is very complicated and we want to make it more simple. At that time we use design pattern, that proxy design pattern. So if we are interested only some of the necessary part object whereas not all of them, so that time we also use this design pattern. And let's say every time instantiating, initializing all the object needs lots of times. Another word means it costs lots. So in reduce the cost and time, so we use a design pattern called proxy design pattern. So this will help us to reduce the cost and time. For that, this all the above questions, who do we call? So this is a question. So that time the actual answer comes out as proxy. So where exactly the proxy design pattern is used. So this is when some scenario, I have mentioned 4 scenarios. When this scenario happens, we apply design pattern, proxy design pattern. So the object being represented is external to the system. That time we use design pattern. When object need to be created on a demand, that time we use a proxy design pattern. Access control for the role object is required. That time we also use design pattern. And when we edit functionality is required, when object is accessed, that time we also use this proxy design pattern. So this proxy design pattern is very convenient and very easy to use on the software process when you need, but when we need to reuse some part of the software. Okay, now typically you will want to use a proxy design proxy when communication with third party is very expensive process, and perhaps our network, the proxy, will allow you to hold your data until you are ready to commit and can limit the amount of time that communication is called. The proxy is also useful if you want to dedicate actual implementation code from the SEs to a particular library. Proxy is also useful for access to a large file or a graphics. By using a proxy, you can delay loading the resources until you really need the data inside. Without the concept of proxy, application could be slow and appear non-responsive. As we know that responsive, not responsive, when we talk about this, we know the website, some website get reduced size on your mobile phone and it has a larger, it has a desktop version also. So they are a responsive website, and a non-responsive website, the website don't get reduced their sites on the mobile phone. It will shows only desktop version, so they are not responsive. So here some problem is there if we don't use this proxy design uh, to implement, to make it responsive. So we use proxy design pattern to make it responsive. So this proxy design pattern is useful for in such cases. So it's convenient. So now we have here the proxy design pattern structure. So if we go through the structures, you have client, you have interface subject, you have a proxy, you have a real subject. So this proxy will act as a delegates between the interface and a real subject. This proxy represents the real subject and give the informations to the client. So this is the structure of the proxy design pattern and what it looks like. So you can go through this design pattern uh, and you can make some. And okay, now proxy design pattern means a reference that let the proxy is the real subject. It will provide an interface identical to the subject, so that person can be substitute for the real subject. Proxy, when you need control is the real subject and maybe responsible for creating and deleting the resources. So we have subject and real subject. So the subject defines the common interface for the real subject and proxy, so that proxy can be used any way our real subject is expecting. So real subject defines the real object that proxy represents. So this is the object diagram. We have client, we have a client, we have a proxy, we have a real subject. So this proxy and subject, they are interconnected, and the proxy represent this real subject and release gives to the client side. So proxy is the intermediating between the subject and the real subject. So we have three types of proxy, that was virtual proxy. Imagine a situation where there's a multiple database colon to extract huge sites image. Since this is an expensive operation, and we can possibly use the proxy design pattern, which would create multiple proxies and point to a huge memory consuming object for further processing. So the real object gets created only when client first request and access the object, and after that we can use refer to the proxy to reuse the object. This avoids duplication of the object, hence saving. It also saves memories. So this is about the virtual proxy uh, design pattern. Now we have a remote proxy. The remote proxy provides a local representation of the object, which is represented in the different address locations. Example can be private interface for remote reuse, such as web services. Then we have this protecting proxy. The protective proxy acts as an authorization layer to the verifying if the actual user has access to appropriate content. Example can be thought about the proxy servers, which provide restrictive internet access in the office. Only in the website and content which are valid will be allowed it, and the remaining ones will be blocked. So this is about protective proxy. Then we discuss about the remote proxy and this virtual proxy. These three are the types of proxy design pattern. Now we are giving a virtual proxy examples. As we mentioned earlier, virtual proxy useful to save expensive memory resources. Let's take a scenario where the real image contains huge size data which client need to access. To save our resources and memories, implementation will be as below. We are going to create an image interface and concrete class implement the image interface. This proxy image is a proxy class to reduce memory footprint of the real object loading, and proxy pattern demo. This is another class which will be use image proxy to get an image object to load and display as it needed. So this is example for the virtual proxy examples. We created three classes here: image interface, real proxy image class, and proxy pattern demo class. So this is the example of the virtual one. So okay, this one is protective proxy example. So this one is for, let's say, ABC company is there, so they want to create a they want to restrict the internet access based on their roles. So that time we will create one real-time internet class SS class, and we will create one proxy internet SS class. So this real-time internet SS class will allow of the internet allows of internet access for all, but here we want to restrict it some internet users. So we created one proxy internet access class which will check users role and grant access based on their role. So this is about the protective proxy design patterns. So we have discussed about all the three proxy design pattern types of design patterns and proxy design patterns. So now we come to the end, and we are going to stop the today's presentation here. Thank you all, and it